Let's talk about a way to describe someone or something who was doing or who did something by using a past active participle. This is something that'll be really helpful for developing your reading skills. We'll cover what these forms mean, how they're formed, 2 tricky points to keep in mind, and we'll finish with a close look at some examples from Russian writers like Bulgakov and Ulitskaya. In a previous video, we've seen how you can use participles, which are essentially adjectives formed from verbs, to describe someone or something who is doing something, much like который. For example, to talk about students who live in an old dorm, we could say «Вот студенты, которые живут в старом общежитии». Or we could also say «Вот студенты, живущие в старом общежитии». That present active participle «живущие» really means the same thing as «которые живут». Actually, this is a dorm that I lived in during my first stay in Russia, but it was a long time ago. So what if we need the past tense? What if we're talking about students who lived or had been living in an old dorm? Well, we could certainly say «Вот студенты, которые жили в старом общежитии». But naturally, Russian has a participle for this too, a past active participle, and it looks like this. «Вот студенты, жившие в старом общежитии». This past active participle replaces который and the past tense verb жили. Again, the meaning is essentially the same as in the который construction, but the participle is often used in writing or in more formal contexts like speeches or lectures. So, how do we form the past active participle? It's usually pretty easy. Let's start with the masculine form of the past tense, from жить, for example, жил. We'll just drop that L and replace it with вши to get живший. Let's look one more time at that first example, noting how, since this is really an adjective derived from a verb, we'll want it to agree with the noun that it modifies. So here, жившие agrees with студенты. Let's look at a few more examples. From прочитать, прочитал, прочитавший, someone who read. From говорить, говорил, говоривший, who spoke. Or from купить, купил, купивший, who bought. So we can see from these examples that it doesn't matter whether a verb is perfective or imperfective, could be first or second conjugation. This system works for just about every verb in the language. Now you may have noticed I said just about every verb. The thing is, we've said that we replace the L of the masculine past with вши, but what if there is no L? There are a few verbs out there in the language that don't have an L in the masculine past form, like привыкнуть. For example, он привык к русской кухне. To make past active participles for these, we'll just take that masculine past tense form and we'll add ши without the v. Вот студенты, привыкшие к русской кухне. And of course, we do want our adjective to agree with the noun that it modifies. Let's look at a few more examples. Студенты, изучавшие русский язык, читают Улитскую. Она помогала туристу, потерявшему свой паспорт. Since these are adjectives, they do change for case and gender and number. We see how потерявшему agrees with туристу. One more example. Она говорила со студентами, учившимися в России. Now there are 2 small quirks to keep in mind. First, a close look at this last example shows that if a verb has the reflexive ending ся, it will still be there on the end of the participle. Now you may be used to spelling this as S мягкий знак after a vowel, but in participles, we'll never use the spelling S мягкий знак. Instead, this ending will always be spelled ся, even after a vowel. And there's one small group of exceptional forms. Past active participles formed from идти and вести and their compounds have the forms шедший and ведший. So from войти, for example, we have вошедший, who entered. And from перевести, to translate, we have переведший, who translated, etc. And the Russian word for past tense, прошедшее время, is itself a participle coming from пройти, to pass. It's literally the time that passed. Now, both present active and past active participles are really common in written and informal spoken Russian, so we do want to be sure to distinguish the past active participles with вши from the present active participles that end in щи. For example, девушка, говорившая по-русски из Москвы. The girl who spoke Russian, there's our past active participle, as opposed to девушка, говорящая по-русски из Москвы. The girl who speaks Russian or is speaking Russian is from Moscow. In the examples we've seen so far, the participle has replaced который with a verb. But since participles are just adjectives, it's also pretty common for them to come before the noun, just like any other adjective. Let's look at some examples in context. Может быть, прочитавший наши публикации читатель сам найдет ответ. Now, прочитавший is coming right before публикации, but of course the publications won't have been reading anything, and in any case the endings don't match. Прочитавший is singular, публикации is plural. On the other hand, the endings of прочитавший and читатель do match. Same gender, same case. So literally we're saying the who has read our publications reader. But I think it's better English to just say the reader who has read our publications will find the answer himself. Here's another example. И тогда она увидела взявшихся неизвестно откуда людей, сидевших у маленького костра. Now here we see the participles both before and after the noun. Взявшихся, who appeared, and сидевших, who were sitting, both describe the people that she saw. So, somewhat literally, and then she saw who had appeared from nowhere people who were sitting at a small campfire. Or maybe for more natural English, we might try something like, and then she saw people who had appeared from who knows where, who were sitting at a small campfire. Here's one last example from Bulgakov, Master and Margarita. Член правления Пятнашка спросил у сидящего вошедший. So here these last two words are both participles. The letter ща in сидящего shows us that it's a present active participle, someone who is doing something. The second one is the past active participle. It's an example of that irregular type from a compound of идти, here from войти. Now we want to be careful with the word order. We know that it's very flexible in Russian. Here is the nominative case ending, so we know that the one who entered is the subject. Here is the accusative ending. Looks like genitive since it's masculine and animate, so the one who is sitting down is the direct object. You might also notice that these participles don't seem to be modifying any nouns. There's an implied человек here, which can be left out if context makes it clear that we're talking about a person. So a painfully literal translation might be something like, board member Пятнашка asked of the sitting man the one who had entered. I think Michael Karpelson's translation is less literal, but flows much more nicely. Board member Пятнашка, the visitor, asked the sitting man. So, as you can see, when translating participles, you may need to be flexible. Note how the translator here uses visitor for вошедший, and you'll often need to change the word order around as well. Still, if you're not working as a translator, I think that for most of us, the best goal is to just get so used to participles that you can directly understand the wonderfully expressive and compact style that they make possible in Russian. Summing up, past active participles mean essentially the same thing as который with a verb in the past tense. We form the past active participles by replacing the L in the masculine past tense form with вши, making sure that that participle agrees with the noun that it modifies. If there is no L in the masculine past, then we just add шы to the past tense. And do watch out for those two verbs with irregular past active participle forms, шедший from идти and ведший from вести.